Welcome to The Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
The days of terrorizing the innocent are over.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag, which has become the Punisher Bag for the month of November here on the Pull Bag. I am your host, TFG and Mike. Joining me is Ryan, the UnEvenFlow. Hello.
Yo again.
Yo again. You're back for another week and you sound so enthused.
Well, it's not really another week. Oh, sorry. Anyway.
Shut up. Stop trying to screw up. Alright, also joining us is the Punisher Body Count crew back again, Jake and Dane. Hello, guys. How are you?
What up?
Hey there.
And, yes, last week we kicked off Punisher Month. Actually, last Wednesday we kicked off Punisher Month.
I know, it feels just like yesterday.
I know. Right. We kicked off Punisher Month with Punisher Born by Garth Ennis, and this time we're going to do another, I guess, version of the origin story with Year One.
By Dan Abnett.
I've been wanting to read Batman on this show for the longest time. I'm so fucking psyched.
You mean Frank Miller, but pre-going insane? Yes.
Yes.
This is
Miller.
Yeah, this is by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning.
If you insist.
The one thing I will say, the first time, and I know this is bad, this is, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago when I found out that the idiots over at DC have this whole plan of having Keith Geffen go away for a while in the current ongoing for Masters of the Universe. And that's the first time I heard of Abnett's name.
Really?
Was that he's going to do a 5-issue run on the current ongoing for Masters of the Universe coming up. And, yeah, so as far as Year One, as everybody knows, I'm the Punisher newbie here. This was the first time I read this. How long ago has it been since you read it, Ryan?
Oh, what do you mean?
When was the first time you read Year One?
The first time I ever read it would have been 2002, I think, or so. So I actually read it before Born. Chronologically, of course, in real life, I should say, this came from 1994, was when it was originally published. Thus the somewhat dated, we'll say, art style.
Oh, yeah, I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
What about you, Dane? When did you first pick this one up?
I picked it up back in the early 2000s, like around 2001, maybe 2002. There was a man that owned that poorly ran a comic book shop in my area, and he sold these comics to me on discount because he owed some Russians some money, and that man disappeared
Jake,
a month later.
So cheap.
What's that?
I said, wow, Jake, you are so cheap.
Shake, come on, Shake couldn't run a business. Let's not kid ourselves.
No, that's actually true. I actually owned a game store in south of Chicago that I ran for 3 months before I ran it into the ground. So,
oh my God, Jake, what?
I thought you knew that. I thought I told you that before.
Jake, why do we keep secrets from each other?
Well, I guess we've all learned something.
This is why our relationship is
we've all learned something, and we're going to take a quick break before this goes down a really, really rotten rabbit hole. And
Wait,
we'll come back
can I not talk about when I first read this before we go to break?
Yeah, come on.
Sure, go ahead.
I read this back in 2009.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Took you that long?
Nice, so the re-release, presumably.
Do I say it again?
I said, so presumably the re-release, because I mean that...
Oh, yeah, I got the cover where he's holding that, pistol straight out of Warhammer 40K on the cover.
Yeah. I think I've got a copy. Yeah, I do. I have that copy as well as the original. Please don't ask, how many books I have like that.
We know what your list is. Go back and...
I really hate that cover.
Yeah, go back and listen to whatever Origins episode was Ryan's, people. Alright, so we're going to take a quick break and come back with our thoughts on Year One.
Battle van, flare, place it 200 feet above target being tracked.
Alright, so The Punisher, Year One. Run down the staff, Ryan.
I did already. Dan Abnett
Yeah.
was the author of this one. Still in comics, has also written for Doctor Who and a number of other things.
Yep.
So yeah, there's his sort of resume. Andy Lanning.
He's written a lot of X-Men as well.
Yep. Andy Lanning. Is he still
partner.
around? I can't even remember anymore.
He's a frequent partner of Dan Abnett. I mean, they pretty much crafted
That's right.
the Marvel space comics. They guys were like the architects of that. They're pretty much the reason there's Guardians of the Galaxy movie coming out. They're the reason.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Then everyone will pay $10 to see any comic book movie. So.
Oh, I mean, hey, it's a potent combination. But yeah,
anything except Elektra.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Catwoman, or anything with a woman in it, because apparently they just decide all women will be in bad superhero movies.
Look, we all know women can be superheroes.
I guess. Sorry, Wonder Woman.
Back
still
to the Punisher.
Still waiting for the news of, hey, Jennifer Gardner is going to be Wonder Woman.
I'd be okay with that.
Mike, why am I the one moving along your show?
I know, right?
And illustrator is Dave Eaglesham.
Yeah, who is also still around, actually.
And embellisher is Scott Koblish.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell that means. And if you keep going down this, I'll have to hurt you.
Color artists was Marie Javins / Electric Crayon.
So
these
the letterer was Bill Oakley.
I had to look this up because like I said last week, and I'll say it again this week. This is my first introduction to this character beyond the best movie, which was the 2004 movie, because He-Man as the Punisher does not fucking count.
Look, you get to see his naked ass. What more do you want?
He also
gets told to Sipowicz.
Save children. It's basically a family-friendly Punisher. He's the ABC Family version of the Punisher.
Considering that network shows burlesque, I would say, yeah. Okay, so these covers, I had a real problem with these covers when I read
They're beautifully done by Vince Evans.
They are beautifully done, but they are done in the old style.
Really?
And it's like, oh my god. And that's the other thing. I don't know if it's just my copy, but the book smells like an old Harlequin romance novel.
I'm pretty sure you're
Did you find your copy in your mom's drawer there?
No, I bought it from InStockTrades.com.
Was inside her baton that she only uses for security purposes?
Oh, that's getting bleeped out.
Okay.
All right, so I'll say it right now. I hate the art style.
Oh man, really?
I hate the art. I like the design on Frank. The art style itself, I felt like I was reading a Dick Tracy novel.
I'm sorry, I
honestly.
couldn't disagree more. I absolutely love this art.
Top notch.
Exactly.
No.
I wouldn't compare it to, say, Robertson's, but for the tone, it's correct. I mean, you mentioned it looks like a Dick Tracy novel. Yeah. Look, that's kind of what they're going for, actually.
Eaglesham wanted to draw like the Taxi Driver New York. It's shitty, it's corrupt, and it has a gritty exploitation feel. And sometimes Spider-Man comes in to make fun of a drunk reporter. Like that's the world we live.
And that's the other that's the other thing. I assume the point of view character here is the idiot drunk reporter.
No, I think that kind of gets handed around pretty evenly. I don't think there really is a point of view character.
Well, for the first 5 pages of the book, yeah, I would say it's.
Well, there's several. Well, there's two point of view
between
characters.
Him and the cops.
The cops
between
as well.
him and the cops.
Yeah, the cop and the dictator.
Yeah,
Laviano.
And when Peter Parker comes in, I'm like, seriously, really?
Oh, okay, I had a couple of those.
New York is home to majority of the Marvel universe, but Christ, do we really need to cross over with them?
Also, wouldn't Peter basically not be Spider-Man at this point if we're to keep the timeline sort of intact?
No, he'd still be Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, for real.
Yeah, but I mean, as things have changed and they've tried to make things modernized and make the characters' eras make sense, Peter wouldn't have been alive just after the Vietnam War.
Well, no. At this point, like in 1994...
I know, they were still ageless.
It's not just that. It's that you kind of have to agree with the sliding timeline of events. Deadpool just did that in one of his recent comics with David Posehn and things like that. Like it's like, hey, time for it to do a 70s style story with Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and then when it comes into present day, it's like, oh yeah, we did that back in the 70s, and yet none of them have gray hair. Like it's just something they accept.
But
Look,
anyway,
I don't know how hard it is to believe that Peter Parker's not Spider-Man, considering he became Spider-Man
Before
in the mid to late. I mean, chronologically in the real world, in the early 60s, but even in Marvel time, you could say it was the late 60s. Frank could have already done, his tours in Vietnam by 68, 69. I mean, I think it's totally plausible.
exactly.
I'm not saying it's not plausible. I'm saying at the moment for the character as it is, it wouldn't be, especially considering they are trying to hanker down ages to a certain extent.
But this isn't Peter Parker trying to join the Fantastic Four because he just got powers. This is already seasoned Peter Parker getting ready for the Clone Saga.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, we even have Miles Warren come in to remind us he exists. That was great.
So they actually open up with Castle's family, essentially. I mean, McTiernan wakes up and wanders into the park, and we see Maria and the two kids and Frank deceased. And they believe that Frank's dead, too, of course, at first. Turns out he's fine. They misdiagnosed him. They brought him to a better hospital where he was upgraded to alive. But
Yeah, I always.
Oh, so they took him to Canada. Great.
I always
I made a
miss that.
Simpsons reference, you dunce. Oh, never mind.
No, I always miss.
Oh, so it wasn't Dr. Nick working on him then.
No, what you're missing, guys, is he was dead, but then he became a Highlander, so he just popped right back up.
Yeah.
Only one.
Talk about a quickening.
Yeah.
Yeah, continuing it on, the cops question what McTiernan saw, which is nothing. The only person that saw anything is Frank, and of course he wakes up and immediately starts fighting the police, not knowing basically where he is and being sort of grief-stricken, and he beats the crap out of a bunch of them, but eventually they kind of hold him down. And
Because that's what human beings do after they get caught in a bloody crossfire of a mafia activity. They burst out of a fucking body bag and start roundhouse kicking the cops.
Yeah,
It's like I'm
especially
really
considering he's
watching a
been
JVCD movie.
Yeah, plus he's been riddled with bullets at this point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I should note that my recommendation to Mike of this isn't based on quality. I do actually still think it's a reasonably solid story, but
I like the story.
Mike is somebody that wants to sort of follow things along, and chronologically, this made sense to do after Bourne.
Sure.
And that's fine. I like the story in this. I have no problem with the characterizations. I have no problem with what the story does with itself. I just hate the art.
That's fair.
What? Because the coloring sometimes bleeds. Because that's just the price
The
of
coloring
business.
bleeds. It's too like I read this like mid-afternoon on like a cloudless day, and the book was brighter than it was outside. Like I nearly went blind. I nearly went blind as a bat.
So would you say it's super happy fun time chicken McNuggets colors?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Sometimes the colors are like sickly and neon, but they're not like bright. And this isn't like fucking My
All right.
level.
Let's
Anyway.
take the hospital scene.
I actually love the colors, but whatever.
I do too. Thought it fit well.
Just Jake likes.
I'll also point out that they dull the colors as Frank sort of changes as well. It's something that's very noticeable.
Yes.
But yeah,
Specifically, my problem is the hospital scenes.
well, it's supposed to be bright. He's supposed to be. The concept here is he's supposed to be recovering, and of course he's not. But we all kind of. I'll sum up the story quickly because we all kind of know it. Frank, of course, recovers in the hospital. He survives a mob attempt on him. He correctly identifies the shooters. They all get off because of connections. The police aren't able to do anything.
Right
Uh-oh.
I just want to add something to for the listeners. Like Abnett and Landing definitely did their homework. Like when they talk about the Costas, the character designs and everything, they're really hearkening back to what was it, the action shot or whatever, action one shot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
We've
They,
talked about it before, the black and white Punisher stories
yeah,
and
in the Punisher magazines and stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Like they really did a good job incorporating this and really making it fit into it. So, really good job on them. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
There's no, it's fine. And I mean, there's also, not only do they fit in with that, but there's an element of timelessness to it to a certain extent, with the
Yeah.
exception of the art, in that
Well,
this
you
could,
mean belt bottoms aren't in style anymore?
no, but it's not
God, I love
that. I mean,
this.
this could fit in with the majority of the depictions of the Punisher. It
Oh,
actually
sure.
doesn't completely break, Jason Aaron's interpretation either. And I don't know if that was intentional by him to avoid undoing it. I realize we're talking about Max Universe versus 616, but it's interesting that, like, for whatever reason, this kind of fits with all versions of the Punisher, be it the 80s, 90s, or the 2000s. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, we go on. I mean, the police can't do anything, so Frank starts tracking down the got the
Costas.
shooters, the Costas. It's interesting to note that he doesn't start killing them immediately. It's only after his partner in this, the
McTeeter.
reporter McTeer, yeah, is offed, and another attempt is made on Castle by
Uh,
destroying his house. Which, by the
Actually,
way, just blowing.
sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say blowing up the house doesn't jive with Aaron's version, but
Right.
maybe they rebuilt.
Sure.
Doubtful.
Well, I was just going to say that Frank even he even acknowledges that he wants to kill people because you have that scene where McTeeter's like, "Oh, hey, you're not going to use that thing," talking about Frank's Colt 1911, and Frank's like, "No, never." And he's not saying it
Yeah.
sarcastically. He's dead serious.
I don't know about that. I thought it was one of those action guy phrases you'd hear in a movie of this era.
I don't know that he was prepped to kill at that point. But then, I mean, we
But
get into the. Oh, go ahead.
no, there's two things I really want to bring up on this because really what this boils down to is that this is a 4-issue origin series done in 1994 through 1995. What I mean by that is this had no right to really be that good. like
Well,
it,
Yeah.
it
especially when you steal DC's trade or unofficial trademark.
Yeah, yeah. You're just trying to ride another person's thunder, but there's two things that really make this good in my eyes. One is that it is a very evenly paced book. Like you imagine that after issue 1 of seeing everyone get ripped, you just see like next 3 issues is just Frank taking down his first mob family or whatever. And it's really not. Because the second thing that this does is this goes through the 5 stages of grief very well. He goes through disbelief. He goes through bargaining. He goes bargaining in this manner being trying to work with the police, trying to work with the newspapers, trying to make some sense out of his life. Then anger. And then finally, in the end, he accepts a new reality. I know I missed one there, but my point is that the 5 stages.
So stage 5 is kill everyone. No.
Yeah, pretty much. Stage 5 is, oh, wait, I'm a Marine. I can fix my own shit. That's.
And,
You
yeah.
missed grief.
Grief. Well, no, I think I did mention grief in the beginning there. His own disbelief for grief. But yeah, and plus the other fun fact for people, the 5 stages of grief have no direct order. They can be hit at any point.
Yeah, and really in the 5th and the final issue, the last part I'll sum up, we get the finale of the 2005 Thomas Jane movie.
Yeah.
Much.
And
Pretty-
Man.
it's really well done. And to be fair, I mean, I liked that in the '05 film as well too. Although I could have done without the I'm going to plant a bunch of bombs and somehow it's going to be the shape of my skull. Oh, never mind. But
Hey, if
He
you have to
planted
put
the
that arc
bombs,
degree
but he
towards something.
didn't- That was just something Marvel worked up. I don't think that was something in the story of the film that.
really, because it appeared on film, and so points need to be taken away for it because it was kind of hokey. It's funny, those old Marvel movies, there was always one moment where you sat there and you wished you weren't in the theater with other people. That was kind of it for that one.
Yeah.
If Ash had done that in Army of Darkness, it would have been lame. But anyway, I mean, Frank goes out, and yeah, finally he becomes the Punisher at the end of this. He paints the skull as a distraction, I might add. That's his reasoning for it, not to mention intimidation.
Intimidation.
paints the skull on a vest, and yeah, it's the first time he goes out as the Punisher and proceeds to cut down the Costas. And it should be noted that this also served as Jigsaw's origin, as he puts Billy the Beaut Rousseau through a window, quote, as a warning. And as we talked about in Bourne, Frank would go on to let him go repeatedly for no apparent goddamn reason.
No. There was like reasons, just like how like many superheroes have reasons for letting like murderers that have killed more people than gunpowder at this point go. Like Frank Castle lets Jigsaw go. Jigsaw's kind of a shitty villain because he's really not Frank Castle's equal, and they show this clearly in year one. But one thing that Jigsaw does is that he constantly reminds he's like another form of intimidation for other criminal elements. Like they look at Jigsaw and go, "Oh shit, Frank Castle did that to this guy, and he let this guy live. What could he do to me?"
Well, I mean, we'll get into that more, I think, with Welcome Back, Frank, because really the first issue of that is Castle's intimidation, and let's just say Ennis's version of intimidation to me is a little better than letting a guy with like scars go repeatedly.
Well, the first time he encountered Jigsaw, and this goes back to Abnett and Lanning doing their research. Jigsaw, believe it or not, makes his first appearance in Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yep.
And they definitely played it up where he was like, "Oh, I was just a nobody mook, and you threw me through a window, you asshole."
Yeah.
But
time to become a supervillain.
Right, and Frank and Spider-Man team up and they bust his ass, and then the cops take him away. So Frank, had no choice but to let him go in that instance. But even then, like going back to what Dane was saying, the way that issue ends is Frank's just like, "Yeah, fuck, I can't remember this guy for the life of me."
Yeah, it's he like he said, maybe I was really drunk on rage or something. I don't know. I've done a lot of fucked up things.
Is this the same Jigsaw that starred in those stupid Saw movies?
Oh yeah, there's that guy too. I think Jake and I have tried to crack that joke. It never really works out that well. But by all means, give it a shot.
I'm going to pretend you didn't never said that, so I won't have to berate you for the next 10 minutes. Not you, Dane. Not you, Dane. I meant Micah.
No, I hear you.
All right, good. We're on the same page. Anyway, yeah. Geez, we've already kind of summed it up. I'll say this. I mean, in a lot of ways, year one very much was year one. It's the tale of Frank Castle more than it is the Punisher. Mm-hmm. And when we get into the movie adaptation, I'll probably make that point again, that it's Frank Castle's story. And in a lot of the same way that DC's year one, their best known year one, which is Batman, is Bruce Wayne's story versus Batman.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I did like this book. Again, I didn't choose this one for Mike because I thought it was the best story. It's just, it sort of falls into that chronology really well.
Yeah, we mentioned before, like, how sometimes Marvel is uncomfortable fitting the Punisher into the Marvel universe, but there have been numerous examples of how you can do that in the not the correct way, but the best way possible. And we can see this also in Punisher year one, where like you definitely see clear elements of the Marvel universe, but they're also mostly divorced from what's going on in Frank Castle's life. Like the Dr. Miles Warren, like once again, this is the Andy and Dan doing their research, because basically the Punisher has kind of a really weird debut issue in Punisher, because it's like the Jackal set me up. What does a mutated scientist have to do with a soldier, and why did he trick a trained Marine into fighting Spider-Man? Doesn't really make sense in a modern element, but they still have to give some kind of weird credit to it. So so what was great for me is they actually did try and make sense of it. They actually said, like, no, before Warren went batshit crazy, he was a doctor, and he actually saw this guy, and he saw this guy whoop ass right in his hospital. So the man actually does know Frank Castle, and he actually may have a reason for pitting him against Spider-Man. Just little things like that made the story a little richer to me.
You bring up a really good point with that, too, because it's something that others have done as well, including, of course, Rucka tied it in the exact same way, using a lot of the different New York characters, and it's something that are probably, I think, most Punisher fans will agree. Our absolute favorite Punisher writer did brilliantly, and that, of course, is Matt Fraction, best writer on the Punisher ever. If only we could have gotten a book written by Matt Fraction that Howard Chaykin had drawn. That would have been amazing.
Dare to dream.
As long as it wasn't the Punisher's Day Off, I'd be happy to read that.
They actually do have a story called that.
You wouldn't if you ever read a book by Fraction and Chaykin.
Yeah.
Shoot me now. I wish I'd never said that.
One
Can't
second,
believe
guys.
you missed that joke, Ryan.
No, Are you kidding? Do you have any idea how badly traumatized I am by the War Journal run and then Howard Chaykin's Nightmarishly Bad issue 50 arc?
But I said I would read
God, that
Fraction's
issue was
Punisher as long as it wasn't Punisher's Day Off.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm still traumatized by that. Chaykin's art was nightmarish. If you guys ever do a show on like the worst Punisher artists, if he's not number one, I'm gonna scream at you.
Yeah.
It's definitely top 3, if not number 1.
Oh. Anyway, back to here.
How did Howard Chaykin get fans? Like, there are diehard Howard Chaykin fans out there.
They released a hardcover book of his work somehow. Figure that out.
Well, no. I'm always the guy. Now, this is a pretty ignorant opinion since I haven't seen I haven't seen his independent work. But I always felt like Chaykin was the guy that had kind of like the Sam Keith of Marvel. Like, he has a very distinct style through his own independent work, and then one of the big 2 companies just said well, we might as well bring him in, and he just kind of runs on his own inertia.
I mean, I guess I can see that, except for Sam Keith actually has talent.
No, I agree, and I actually felt bad for that, but you know what I'm talking about.
I see what you're saying, and I get what you're saying. Yeah.
If Parlov, Fernandez, or Robertson had taken a crap on the page, it would have looked better than that issue 50. Anyway, so...
Can we talk about some of the characters in this comic?
I would like to, yes. Wait, I was the one that started that tangent. Shit. What do you want to start with, though? Because, I mean, I think...
McTeeter.
Bitch.
McTeeter.
It's McTeer, but anyway. He... Sort of the slimy, drunk reporter, but he's sort of in the same boat as Frank to a certain extent. He's lost his wife, although in his case it's his own fault.
Because he's a drunk.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was probably intentional, that he was meant to sort of have at least a little in common with him, even if he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, McTeer was what Frank could have become. He could have just started drinking after all of this, too, and been a drunk. But
I think we all lost our innocence at Woodstock. But it hit McTeer just a little bit harder.
I'll just say this, too. I liked the cops in this.
Especially
the cops great.
Lamont in particular, because, of course, he has the scene where he wrestles with whether or not to help Frank.
Did you say Lamont? Because it's Loviano.
Laviano.
Is it? Oops.
Laviano, yeah.
Damn it. Either way, I thought he was really well done. I liked that sequence outside his garage, and we get the, he tells him that, it is Levant. He tells him that, Castle's dead, et cetera, and I like that. I mean, he has a serious problem helping this guy who he knows is just going to go out and kill everyone. But
in a way, he feels responsible because
exactly. But
he assured Frank that they were going to do something. But of course, the Costas had their hooks into the police department, and the higher-ups were like, no, they're alibied up, they're lawyered up, we're taking a kickback, so you need to drop this shit.
And they let the lower-level guys take the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Loviano was the one character that I liked in the beginning, but I felt kind of uneasy about toward the end. And I don't mean like, oh man, how could he let that information go to Frank Castle? I understood that. Just the way his whole character arc ended, which is like, welp, I guess we created a mass murderer. Oh man, shit sucks.
Yeah,
I don't think that's...
do?
Yeah, that's the thing. The character that's introduced on the first 8 pages of the first issue, I don't care what he's gone through. That should not fucking match. It does not match with the guy you see on the last couple pages. Which is like, man, shit happens. Whatever.
his indifference is fine up to a point, but yeah, that last page. Now, I guess you could say like he was drunk, but yeah, I agree. That last page where he just kind of says like, where were you when the war broke out? He's downright sort of happy about it. The indifference in the page before I was okay with, where he's just kind of like, gee, what a tragedy! All the Costas are dead.
Yeah, it sounds weird, but I'd almost put it out as like giddy apathy. Like, wow, I don't care anymore about the system. I'm just gonna let everything go to shit like everyone else.
Yeah,
And
couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
I agree with all that, but I still enjoy his exchanges with Castle. I thought were really well done.
I agree.
Yeah, I liked it. Liked him as a character.
How do we feel about this version of Frank, since he's the only one we really haven't discussed?
I love it. I think this is just so good because once again, I was shocked at the amount of screen time they gave of Frank Castle not being grim, not being a grim narrator, and not just constantly busting people through fucking doorways to get information. They certainly do that, but just him like being able to talk to his. I mean, some people might argue that it borders on the melodramatic, but him like talking to his wife inside his house, and that whole narration he goes through. Taking out his military uniform to get a gun and considering suicide. I mean, that's not something you'd see in an 80s Punisher book. What do you mean Frank Castle would ever consider killing himself? That's not the manly thing to do. But it might be the family man thing to do if that's what if you lost that part of your life.
In a lot of ways, and again, this is why I chose this book as one of Mike's. In a lot of ways, this was the precursor to Ennis's Punisher.
I don't know how I feel about that. What do you mean?
I mean, Marvel Knights. I'm not going as far as to say Max, but the fact that he's depicted as a lot more broken in this. Now, in this case, it's by his family's death.
Yeah.
But he's not depicted as, a little more sort of happier. This kind of opened the door to him being a darker character.
Yeah, I could definitely see
in some
that.
ways, it's the year one for this character. He was very much sort of a Batman-esque character. Yes, he was grim, particularly when Miller wrote him in Daredevil. But for the most part, he was still like sort of jokey. And there's a bit of that here. He hasn't completely lost it, but he's still a lot darker. He's a lot less of a nice guy than otherwise depicted. I couldn't necessarily see this version of the Punisher, especially at the end, hanging out drinking cider with Microchip.
Yeah, no, okay. You've definitely won me over on that. I think they take his Marine coming home to his family side a lot more seriously, because one thing the Marines can't prepare you for is how do you deal with the death of someone you care about. Marines can teach you how to field strip an M16. They can teach you how to patch a wound, but they can't really tell you how to deal with grief. I mean, I'm sure they definitely have services, but it's not part of basic. That's one of the issues I see in this comic is that how alone Frank is, and there's really no one for him in the comic to really rely on to be his friend. I mean, he eventually allies himself with a drunk reporter, but that's as close as it gets.
And that's done through a lie, though, that he finds out about. I mean, the only person who talks to him is the guy who's trying to use him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm resonating with what you're saying, Dane. Yeah. I definitely got the sense of isolation from Frank Castle in this story.
Yeah.
I love the scenes with him and the reporter going out trying to get the information.
Oh, those are masterpieces.
I thought that was great. Even though I'm not a fan of the art, I thought that part of the story was absolutely awesome.
And again, in a lot of ways, we see Frank Castle again because the Punisher would have torn these people apart literally to get that information. He's not that person yet, but he's well on his way.
Up on the laundry hangers.
Oh God, I love the slavers. Anyway.
Yeah, I could hear 80s montage music playing as they ran through people.
You're the best around.
The
How
sad
about
thing,
we
the whole
don't need
time you
another
guys were
hero?
talking just now, the sad thing is I made 2004 film references. Don't Drink Your Memories Away, and the song I heard in my head was Broken. Oh, God.
Wow.
I
As
think
long
you're
as you don't bring
broken,
up
Mike.
fake Johnny Cash guy, I guess you'll be okay.
Or or the fondue.
Or Kevin Nash.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Super
or the,
Shredder.
well,
He
wait,
was fine.
have
It
you
would have
read?
been awesome if
Sorry, I was
he would have
just
given
curious.
Frank the jackknife.
Jackknife Powerbomb. I was curious if Mike, if you've read Welcome Back, Frank yet.
I'm reading these right before we do the shows.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
That's-
For sure.
Yeah, that's going.
And honestly, when we get to the point of getting to Welcome Back, Frank,
Sweet.
that book's going to give me carpal tunnel if I read it all at once. It really is.
Welcome Back, Frank's going to probably change your opinion of the '04 movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I concur.
Oh,
Or
can I say that there's one part about this that really kind of bugs me? It's when it's when Laviano is talking to Private Detective Witz, his friend in the department, and they're talking about basically talking about the murder scene, and Laviano says, "Oh man, this was a real professional job. I don't know how we'll even I don't even know how we'll handle this." And I go, "Really? A professional job? Mobsters go into one of the most populated parks in the world and decide to murder a man and hang him from a tree? Oh, this was clearly the work of experts." Holy
Comic book detectives are terrible.
They're just like, Jesus Christ, we're dealing with like a new Moriarty here.
Until Gotham City
Murder in
Central.
plain sight.
Until Gotham City Central, every comic book detective was a moron, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, this was a good man, but like,
Gotham Central. Whoops.
what part of executing a man in Central Park and then hanging him like a pinata is like, clearly these are strong, silent, smart killers?
To be fair, wasn't Biggie killed like on the Las Vegas Strip in like broad daylight after a fight?
I thought that was Tupac.
I don't
That
know.
was
Yeah,
Tupac.
it was one of them anyway. Was killed in like broad daylight after a fight on the strip.
Well, if you believe what Chris Rock says, the government hates rap music, and they're purposely covering that up.
Could be.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing I believe Chris Rock says.
I'm still on a character kick here, and can I just say, wow, Peter Parker is kind of a heartless dick.
He is, very much so.
I mean, I was kind of amazed by it because here's the thing: you can say that I want to get his name right here. It's McTeer. McTeer's
yeah.
kind of like, that guy that goes like, "Hey man, can I borrow $3?" And you hand him the $3, knowing you'll never see it again. We all know that guy,
Yeah.
but Peter Parker actually walks up to the guy and goes like, "How's it going, McChug? Landed on your face this morning?" Peter Parker's just going, hit the punchline to that joke is, "Haha, you have alcoholism." That's fucking Peter Parker.
So in the end, the lesson here is Peter Parker is the real Punisher in this book.
Yeah, he punished this
Well,
man
that
so
or he's been attached to the symbiote.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a wonderful thing if that was.
No, guys, you both got it wrong. This is really the Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, this is.
Oh God, not Ben Riley.
Well, it can't be symbiote Peter Parker because he's not dancing.
Oh, damn it!
Zing!
Meanwhile, this Peter Parker goes like, "Hey, McTeer, how's the wife?"
I found that really insensitive for Peter to say. Sure. No, seriously.
I can do this.
like the alcoholism quip I can kind of get because at times Peter, whether he's attached to a symbiote or not, can be a dick.
Yeah,
But that's just not even cool. And the other thing is, seriously, your spidey sense is going to go off if someone steals a roll of film from your desk. Really?
It was his most important role.
if I was McTeer in this situation, I'd be like, "Hey, Peter, how's the uncle?" I would just be like,
Yeah.
"You."
Nice.
Want some Uncle Ben's rice?
So basically, McTeer is Batman.
Pretty much.
Wow. Oh God, I hate all those internet memes.
Yeah,
They make me laugh at least once, and then every time I see them after that, it's like, oh God, not this again. Really?
Join us when we come back for an actual wrap-up. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, because I mean, they're really, we see Frank's road to becoming the Punisher, and I do enjoy that. And like I said before, I really enjoyed the writing. I
And
enjoyed the story.
actually, well, one thing I will like is that one of the common things that Jay and I have brought up since like the early days of the Punisher Body Count podcast is that one of the funny things about Frank Castle's family is they're not so much human beings often as they are just props. Like Jason Aaron, I think, is the closest we've gotten to a real family. I'm sure there's been brief flashbacks, but I swear most people don't even know what Maria's hair color is. It's that unimportant to Frank's origin. But in this one, in this arc, you actually see that Frank Castle, even in death, has a relationship with his wife, and he remembers the things that she did, even little things like putting little forget-me-not flowers along the border. That built up pathos that a lot of writers did not bother with in the 80s and
It's
90s.
it's funny
even in
that
this, he's like, "Fuck, I can't remember his daughter's name. Fuck it, just rename her."
Yeah, yeah,
it's funny because you mentioned that and you mentioned Aaron in the same breath. He's one of the only other ones that picked that up again because you get the sequence of he mentions that the living room still smells like Maria and things like that in his ones. I mean, she was more than basically she's a table in most Punisher books. She's just sort of an object, and there's quite a bit that uh, is owed to year one over Frank's
yeah.
career in the year 2000 on.
Yeah, I mean, there's often like this weird feeling in some Punisher comics where it's almost like you could almost replace Frank's family with a really sweet Camaro, and someone fucked it up and
Yeah,
is real mad. Like,
I
you
said
fucked with my property.
That's why I said table. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
sort of thing. It was just
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back with final thoughts and ratings after this.
Okay.
We are back, and it is time for final thoughts on year one. I'm gonna go first. I'll never read this again.
Really?
Like I've said the
That
entire
seems
episode.
a little extreme.
Yeah.
Then, huh?
I will. No, it's not that bad. I like the story, but this is one of the reasons why I'm glad I'm not attached to '90s comics at all.
Yeah.
The art, the art in places is good. There are a couple of good Punisher shots, like when he puts the shirt on and all that stuff, and when he's actually being the Punisher later in the trade. But I don't like the background style. I don't like how it's drawn. I don't like how it's colored. I don't care for the '90s art at all. It's kind of like I made that comment to you, Ryan, when we did the DC episode. There's no way in hell I'm going back and reading 60s and 70s Batman because I cannot. I don't see how anybody could enjoy that art style.
There's not enough
at all.
Photoshop in it for you.
Jackass.
I like how Jake uses Photoshop. Like as soon as it's used, it's just like, oh, this art is sullied. He has a very Amish way of looking at art.
Tell him to update it and use Instagram. Then fine. No, anyway,
There's a difference between photoshopping and actually using digital ink.
Yeah.
All right. Who's
No,
next?
here's the thing. No, here's what I don't like about Photoshop. Okay, is that anyone can do it. It turned amateur wannabe artists into being super awesome when they really have no right to be that good, and the computer allows them to phone it in. And that's just my opinion. And I know there are tons of people that are like, no, you never had to tell it to begin with. I'm like, no,
I
fuck
think
you.
this is a whole other discussion we can have in the pull bag at a later date.
All
I
I'm
Honestly.
saying,
asked who
hey,
was
let
next,
me just
Mister.
say this one more thing. An automatic AK-47 turns anyone into an instant badass. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay. Ryan, final
Well,
thoughts.
I'm next. I'm gonna have to give it 4 out of 5 in the end. I really like this as an origin story. There are a few things I definitely would have changed if you know, had if I had it over again. Yeah, because I'm the writer. There's a few things I didn't like about it. And yeah, I mean the art is dated, even though I like it and I really like the motif that they went with, and I understand what they were trying to do with the coloring. I have no real issues with that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but it is a very good, and it is surprisingly, like I said before, there is sort of a timeless quality to it.
What about you, Dane?
Um, I agree with many of Ryan's points. I actually, it's been years since I've read this, and I reviewed it for the main purpose of this show, and it's really gone up in my eyes. Like this is what I feel to be especially in today's world where the Punisher is really only allowed to be a very narrow version of a certain character. That's fine, but I like seeing a version where there's humanity in Frank, and there's not like this forced version of pathos. Like you actually feel like, oh, this is what a human being would actually go through if his family actually died, regardless of how strong he is as a Marine or a soldier. I loved the pacing of it. I felt it didn't waste its time with any of the scenes, but it gave all the characters chance to breathe while not doing the whole like what the problem was when we did Bourne a week ago, where Frank Castle was a total outsider for most of it. We don't get that here. We actually do get into the man's head. We also get to see how it affects other people. To me, it's a wonderful story, and it's one of the stories that people should read if they ever deal with the Punisher character in any professional capacity. It's 5 out of 5 for me.
Jake?
Nice.
Wow, I'm surprised you gave it 5 out of 5, but only gave Bourne 4.5.
I know, and here's the
Really
thing: like
shocked me.
this is why Jake and I don't have like real ratings on our show because they can get real arbitrary if you do them long enough.
I tend to
Um,
agree
You guys
because,
argue
yeah.
for 30 minutes over whose rating was more accurate.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, he's right.
No.
Like, I have issues with me giving it a 4, but I have a really hard time putting it at a 4.5, considering
Yeah.
some other stuff I'd put there. Now,
Yeah,
Because
having
it
said
sounds
that,
like I'm shitting on Bourne, but I bought Bourne like 10 years ago, and I'm reading this and I go, wow, this still holds up. This is a really good story.
I was about to say, though, that like 4 out of 10, which is what I gave this, is still a phenomenally good rating. People seem to have forgotten that IGN is the most guilty of this, by the way. 80% or higher is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You don't
Well,
have to
IGN's
you don't
numbering
have to
system
be
starts at 70 and goes up to 100.
Yeah, exactly. And really, I mean, everything like 7 and above is exceptionally good. But anyway, yeah, so
And I will put the link to the GCRN universal rating system in each one of these episode posts so people can see the description. All of these ratings aren't just, oh, I'm going to give it 4.5. Oh, I'm going to give it 4 stars. Oh, I'm going to give it 3 stars. We have written reasons out
Yes.
why, what descriptions for these ratings on our website at geekcastradio.com, and I'll put that link in the post. What were you going to rate it, Jake?
Well, I'm going to say that I really like the art, but this art style is really in my wheelhouse. I love the colors. I'm always a sucker for the traditional felts. I really agree that the pacing was outstanding. I really love, like, I'm a big continuity guy, and I really loved how they took the time, looked up what the Costas looked like, back in those 70s Punisher magazines. And I like that they fit it in. They made Jigsaw not annoying, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, they basically made him a non-character.
So, they
but
get
still,
props there. Yeah. I think this is a very enjoyable read. I definitely agree that anyone who likes the character, or even someone who likes the idea of the character, or just enjoys, reading a one-off kind of story about this character, should definitely pick this up. That said, I don't think it's as seminal as something like Bourne. I don't think that it's a must-have for every trade collection, and I'm having trouble putting my finger on exactly why that is, but I'm going to give it 4 stars.
All right. And for me, before anybody just jumps down my shit about this, I'm going to read the description. 3 stars, barely passing. Barely passing. While the overall takeaway was positive, you do not necessarily walk away happy. It does not extraordinarily succeed in any specific areas, or if it does, it gets weighed down by something equally unsuccessful. Though overall enjoyable, it is easily disposable. Like I said before, I will probably never read this again, simply because I can't stand the art. I love the characters, I love the character interactions, and I love the story of how they explain Frank's origin, but the art really sticks with me. Like, oh my god. Like, this to me looks like
It's fair.
it could be a Riddler origin more than a Punisher origin.
Okay.
The art is just, I just can't get past the art.
Well, you know what that means, don't you, Mike?
No.
It just means you didn't get it.
Apparently not.
Oh my god!
All right.
I can't believe you did. We need. It's fucking bingo with you, Jake. It always goes in a fucking row. God damn it!
Anyway,
Look,
All right.
look, everyone goes to the concert to hear the singles, okay?
I mean, one last
Does anyone
thing.
go to Metallica concerts these days to hear their new shit? No, they go to hear Enter Sandman, all right?
Ride the lightning, motherfucker!
Anyhow,
Ryan.
the last thing I'll sort of mention is that it's worth noting that, I mean, the tone. I did this deliberately again when I gave you that list.
Yes,
I picked
did.
books with completely different tone, and we're going to shift completely again next week because, I mean, Bourne was unfortunately the only title I picked out of the Max line because there's a bit of a coherent story to the Max line. I would have loved to have thrown in some other stuff, but it is.
And let me just say before you
But-
continue, let me just tell the listeners that November 2013 is not just the only time we will cover Punisher. So I'm sure there are other books that we will cover in the future. So don't think, oh my god, these are the only books they're going to cover ever. That's not the case.
But anyway, yeah, I went for the tone shift to Year One, which is a little lighter than Bourne. Actually, everything is lighter than Bourne. And then next week is Welcome Back, Frank, which any Punisher fan knows. For the love of God, I hope so. Anyway, and that's another like complete tone shift from the other two.
Also next week is something I threw in there because I love it so much, is the Punisher movie adaptation from the 2004 film.
Which is a really good place to put it, because I really think your view on that and the movie may shift quite a bit.
I've never read it before.
Yeah, neither
Well,
have I.
go get it.
It was the only book in the list I didn't own or read or haven't read before.
So
Well,
that'll be
You
interesting.
guys got a week.
Good times. Good times.
All right, so for the pull bag, I am TFG and Mike with Ryan, Jake, and Dane, and we will catch you next time here in Punisher Month. Keep reading those comics. We'll see you then.
Good night. And if you see something, why don't you say something?
What the fuck does that even mean?
You could be blind as a bat, so I mean, you never know.
I see without seeing. To me, darkness is as clear as daylight. What am I?
Please! You're as blind as a bat!
Exactly.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.